I'm going to stop the record. Anton Guinea here from the Guinea Group of Companies, where we help people become great humans. We help leaders become better versions of themselves, better versions of themselves, and we help leaders create high-performing teams by focusing on their people, which is a really, really cool thing to do when you're a leader. So today's very much about, looks like we just had one participant join. Thank you for joining. Christopher Doring's joined in. Hey, mate. How are you, buddy? Hey, hang to the end, Chris. Got something special for you, bro, if you hang around. And that goes for anyone else that joins too. So hopefully we'll get a few more on. We've had a few registered. So I'm going to get cranking though. I'm at GECC today, which is the Gladstone Entertainment and Convention Centre. We're actually at a supply chain expo today run by the Gladstone Engineering Alliance, which is really, really cool. So I'm doing it out of office again, as you do, as you travel around the place doing this sort of work. So I'm really enjoying today and meeting a whole lot of other businesses. There's so many stalls. All of the Gladstone, major Gladstone industry has spoken on stage, and they did a round table, which was really cool to listen to what's going on in the business community in the industry in Gladstone. So team, let's get cranking, because we're not talking about Gladstone today. We're talking about empathy. And what we're talking about is what empathy really takes. What is empathy first? Let me ask you to do something for me, if you could, please. Is there an about you? Is there an expectation that you've got of today? What do you want to learn about empathy? Because it's really important for me as a presenter to meet your needs. So it's not about our material. Like, I'm happy to go and scrap this material and help you with anything that you'd like to know about specifically. So please feel free to put anything in the chat box there. I'm going to address all of your expectations up front and as we go through the material. So please add your expectations. A little bit about myself is I've been doing this for 16 years now. So we've been in leadership, training, people development, business development, team building work, 16 years. I've been married for 26 years. So my lovely wife, Julie, who I'm so grateful to have met all of those years ago, 30 years ago, I think I met Jules, 31 this year, actually, in September. So lucky to have built that relationship, and we have grown together. And I think being married for so long is my greatest achievement on this planet by far. Don't worry about best-selling books, don't worry about growing businesses, don't worry about anything else to maintain that marriage through thick and thin, tough times and good times. And love the sport of triathlon. So please phone me and talk about triathlon, because we'll have a long conversation about that. Now, about us today, please ask questions. Please put questions in the chat box. Please contribute as you would like to. Chris, please let me know what's going on for you, mate, or anyone else that's going to join in. Looks like we've got some people ready to come in. And we're all in this together, and please hang around, because at the end of this, I'm going to give you a special gift. Last webinar, we gave away a DISC profile, which is a personality profile, and gave that to Sylvia. So thank you, Sylvia, for joining us last webinar. And that was worth $220 a DISC profile. So yeah, we give away great stuff. And again, today we're going to give away something fantastic as well. So let's crank. Let's get into the topic. Let's get into the subject matter, and let's dive deep into what empathy really takes. Now, here's the thing. When I say empathy, some people think sympathy. Some people think empathy is just an emotional state. Some people think empathy is just a feeling. I'm here to tell you that empathy is so much more than that. If you're looking for the emotion that we experience when someone's having tough times, when someone's hurting, when someone's in a grief situation, the emotion that we go to is sympathy, sorrow for them. Adam Calderon, thanks for joining, mate. Stay to the end, bro. You've missed the intro. Stay to the end. We've got a giveaway for you and Chris at the end of this program, at the end of the webinar. And for any of you that are joining late, we're doing what empathy really takes now. We're diving into I think the biggest myth around empathy, and what the biggest myth around empathy is that it's an emotion only, and that it's more like sympathy than empathy. Let me explain that. Let's unpack that. Someone's going through grief. Someone tells you that they've had a loss. Someone tells you that they are terminally ill now. Someone tells you that they just lost their job, just become redundant, those stressful life events. So as a psychology student, nearly finished a Bachelor of Psychological Science, one thing that we unpack is the impact of stressful life events on people, both at home and at work, because it's really hard to separate home and work because we bring our stuff to work, because we're the full human species, and so we should bring our home to work and take our work home so that we get support for that. And if you've got a good leader, they'll support you through tough times. Yes, sometimes we've got to take time off. I get that too. So there's stressful life events. Now, when someone tells you that, when someone on your team says that they've got a challenge, you'll go straight to sympathy. You'll put your hand on your heart, probably, even though your emotions aren't in your heart, they're actually in your limbic brain. And you'll go, I'm so sorry. I feel, and there's not much you can do. And people, when they tell you they're in grief, don't want your help. I want you to listen, because there's nothing you can do for a terminally ill person. There's nothing you can do to bring someone's loved one back. We go straight to sympathy, right? Now, sympathy is a naturally occurring emotion. So it happens now. You don't have to think about sympathy. You get someone tells you something, goes straight into your limbic system, which is where emotions are stored in our brain, our prehistoric, our reptilian brain, and all of a sudden you have this emotional response. That's what your heart and your head does. It sound like that internally. It takes 0.3 of a second, just so that you know, for your emotional part of your brain to fire 0.3 of a second. Someone tells you something, within half a second, less than half a second, 0.3, a third of a second, you've had an emotional response, which is sympathy. Now, let's go to the other end of the scale, where we talk about, so sympathy is high care factor and it's a natural emotion. Let's go to the other end of the chart. And I just use these as what we call opposing or juxtapositions or dichotomous emotions. So there's sympathy at one end and then there's apathy at the other. So what we mean by apathy is there are some people that are born on the planet that struggle to feel other people's pain, struggle to feel other people's grief. And, most of us aren't like this. So there's some people, when you tell them that you've got something going on, that they're very apathetic, which sometimes that's a naturally occurring characteristic for that human, which is cool. Now, apathy is a natural response. Some people don't think apathy is an emotion. They think it's a reaction, which is cool, and it doesn't really matter. What I want you to understand is that apathy is low care factor. It's when someone has a challenge, or they're having even if they don't have a challenge, if they're having a conversation with you and you're not interested, your internal state, your emotional state, if it is apathetic, will show up in your body language. It'll show up in your eyes wandering. It'll show up in where your feet point. It'll show up in your body language. It'll show up in your eyes rolling back in your head as they're talking to you. So apathy is something to really, really be on top of, because people sense the fact that you're not interested and that you don't care, which is what apathy is, low care factor. Now, sympathy, apathy, natural reactions, believe it or not, they're actually natural. Hey, jump in too, team. Let me know in the chat box. Have we got any chats? Interest. Internet seems to be a bit slow. I hope it's going okay, Chris. Is it better now? Okay. Yeah, it is better now. Cool. Thanks, Chris. So now we've got sympathy and empathy. Sympathy and apathy. Let's jump into the middle, what we call our leadership zone. Now, let me give you the big picture empathy. Let me give you the Brene Brown. If you haven't heard of Brene Brown, go and Google Brene Brown. Google Brene Brown's TED Talk. Brene Brown is an amazing speaker. She works in the shame and the blame and the vulnerability emotions, which are really deep-seated emotions for people and leaders that stop us doing stuff because they're all associated with the fear and the fear element of our brain, of our emotional state, and our amygdala, which fires when we're put into tough situations like public speaking or doing a video webinar, which people don't love. Now, what Brené Brown will tell you is that empathy is these 3 words. Sorry, there's people coming and going. And we're at a conference today, just so you know, at an entertainment centre, which is really, really cool. And I've just stepped out to do this webinar for everyone. So empathy is holding the space. If you do nothing else in empathy, if you do nothing else, hold the space. Now, what I mean by holding the space is when someone's challenged, yes, you go straight to sympathy. Empathy is being able to move past the emotion of sympathy and actually be present enough to say, hey, I've had an emotional response to this. I've had an emotional reaction, and it's a significant emotional reaction. It's care factor high. And then as the conversation gets deeper and deeper, and the person's unpacking more hurt and more pain and more grief and more struggle and more challenge to you, it's about being in the zone and holding the space, being willing to be uncomfortable, because it's uncomfortable talking about other people's grief. It's uncomfortable talking to a terminally ill person. It's uncomfortable, as if you're not a trained psychologist, to be able to, or a counsellor, to be, or done leadership coaching. It's uncomfortable to be in these conversations sometimes. And I'm telling you that there's times in your life where you just want to run, and it's not because you're not a great human. It's because it's uncomfortable to hold the space. Now, the thing about empathy is this. That's number one. So just be present when it comes to empathy. The thing about empathy is, this is it. I'm going to tell you, let's go to the next level. And I'm going to take some content from a person called Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book on emotional intelligence. So Daniel Goleman's theory is that we need to be aware of our own emotional state. Then we need to manage our own emotional state, especially if our emotions go up or down for any particular reason. So we need to be able to manage those and keep them in control so that our emotions don't drive our behavior too much, right? So that's emotional intelligence, managing our emotions, being aware of our emotions, and then managing them. And then it's about, so that's self, and then it's about being aware of other people's emotions and managing that. Daniel Goleman says emotional intelligence is all based around empathy. This is the one key human skill that, although we can't measure people's empathy, we can watch people and watch leaders, particularly. Who needs to demonstrate the most empathy? Leaders, when their teams come to them. And my favorite is when a leader's not a dog lover and someone in their team comes to them. We do this exercise during our leadership programs, our 2-day programs. Someone rings and says, an important team member says, hey, my dog's died, I need a week off. How do you respond to that as a leader? Especially if you're not a dog lover, so you don't get that. You don't get it. You're sort of in your mind, you're going, week off? And so let me tell you the 3 steps around empathy. And let me tell you, it's holding the space from Brené Brown. And then, so someone's got some challenges. Someone's got a conversation they need to have with you. Someone needs time off because their cat died or their dog died, which is seriously, you will get that phone call as a leader eventually, or something like that, where you struggle mentally just to go to process it. Why? I don't get it. And you don't have to get it. When you put it through your frontal lobe, which is your thinking part of your brain, we'll process it, and you'll process it and you'll go, okay, I don't yet get this. I don't have to. All I need to do is understand, which is what empathy is, understand psychologically that this person's in grief, having grief. I need to be able to say, okay, they're in a grief situation. They're struggling in front of me. I need to be present and I need to be in this conversation. I need to be able to hold the space, because for them, this is processing, this is thinking, because for them, this is a tough situation. And what you might even want to do is just imagine that let's say it's the dog died scenario, because I just love this scenario, because there's people on either side of the fence. If you're a dog lover, you'll get it. If you're not a dog lover, you won't get it. So then if you're not a dog lover, you've got to think about what it would be like to lose. You've got to process this, and maybe it's like losing a family member. What would that feel? Oh, hold on a second. Losing a dog for some people is like, oh, right. It's that serious for that. Okay. Bang. Now it's in your frontal lobe. Now you're processing this stuff. Okay. So it's like losing a family member. I get that now. Stage 2, when it comes to empathy, Stage 2 is about feeling the emotion that person feels. So it's about understanding emotionally where they're at. So if that person is really pouring their heart out, it's about sharing that emotion. It's about being in that grief with them and saying, hey, how are you feeling? And why? What is it about the loss, the grief? What is it about what you're going through that makes you feel like that? You cannot be empathetic until you've processed, until you've felt, even though it's back here. So there's 2 parts of your brain. There's your frontal lobe, and then there's the emotional part of your brain, which is at the back of your brain, which is your limbic brain, which I've talked about, which you've got your amygdala and all your emotions stored down here. We go like this for emotions, even though they're here. So we put it through our frontal part of our brain. Then we feel the emotion that other people feel. And if you can't, ask them how they're feeling. Ask them for these. Just hold on a sec. Ask them for the specific emotion that they're feeling. So what are you going through? Talk me through it. And it's okay to say, tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. When you're in empathy, unlike sympathy, and this is the difference. Now we're going to get to the dichotomy, the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is a naturally occurring emotion. Empathy is not. Empathy is thinking, feeling, and then acting. Take an action. That's it. Empathy, you're not empathetic unless you've taken action. It's not possible to be empathetic. Because in sympathy, people don't want you to help them. They just want to share. In empathy, they're talking to you predominantly because they need help. They need you to do something for them. And that's the challenge, to understand when you're sympathetic and when to be empathetic. Now, the reason that empathy is so related to leadership, it's because people in your teams need your support. Sometimes people in your family need your support. Here's the thing. We think, we feel, then we act. So what's the action piece? Well, the action piece is this, very, very specifically. And I'm going to use a word now that is part of the human psyche. It's part of what we're born with, and it's compassion. The human Homo sapien is a compassionate being. So psychologists have tested this in babies. Compassion starts in the early months of life. Most of us, and I'm talking bell curve here, like 90% of people on the planet are born compassionate, with some level of compassion. Now, what compassion is, if for me to sum compassion up for you, because it's such a big word, is it caring? Is it feeling? Compassion is a call to action. Compassion is when you say, I get it, I feel you, and I'm here to help. Now, some people, when they're talking to you in their tough times, don't know how you can help them. They might not even feel like they need help. If one of your team members rings you and says, I need a week off because my cat's passed away, they do need your help, because they need you to commit to 7 days off or 5 days off or 2 days, whatever it is. How you handle that conversation is up to you. I'm going to give you the 3 steps here. Be cognitive, thoughtful, be emotional, and be compassionate. So take action. Now, that action might be, yep, thank you, thanks for the call. Hey, you can have 5 days off. Or it might be, hey, is there any chance, look, happy to help. Do you need any help with the funeral? Really care enough to ask for how you can help them. Oh no, I'm okay. And that's cool. Just let people know you're here for them if you can't help them. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you probably the best, because it's easy for me to say take action, and it's easy for me to say just do something to help. When people that are in grief, that are in struggle street, actually don't sometimes know. They're not even thinking clearly anyway, and they can't make great decisions. That's what grief does. It messes with our limbic system. It messes with our limbic brain. It stops us thinking clearly. So when we're in grief, sometimes we feel like all we want to do is talk. We really want to be helped too. And there's some questions that you can ask yourself. What can you do? How can you help? What does this person really need? Now, sometimes they'll be clear, I need some 5 days off, or I need you to go, do this for me, or maybe it's financial help. I don't know, whatever it happens to be. If it's a family member, might need financial help. The challenge is that without action, empathy doesn't exist. Without action, you might as well say that you've been apathetic. I know that's a big call. Without action, even if you felt their pain, you're probably in sympathy. That's what separates empathy from sympathy, is action. Now, let me give an example. This is just the best case study I could probably ever give you, and I heard it the other day with one-on-one coaching client. This is compassion. This is how to be compassionate. So, we had a leader I'm doing one-on-one coaching with. Please put in the chat box. How are we going? Is there any expectation? Anyone want to get anything else? Any questions, queries, comments? Got a few people on, so please yell out. I'm checking the chat box. So we had a leader. One of his team members came to him and needed some time off. This person's team member was affected by domestic violence. And so his team member was also a he, and it wasn't him, leader, team member. So the team member wasn't personally affected. It was a loved one of the team member. So the team member's loved one was being affected by domestic violence. So the team member was hurting, seeing their loved one domestically hurt. And so the team member said to their leader, I need some time off. I need to go away and help my loved one deal with this. That's a challenging situation. Imagine a leader, someone comes to you and says, I've got domestic violence issues in my immediate family, well, not so much immediate family, my close to immediate family, and I need your support to give me some time off to go and deal with this. And any great leader will say, absolutely. And great, absolutely, cool. This wasn't on the phone. I don't know why the phone signal. This was face to face, and this leader said, absolutely. Now, that's an easy way to answer that question, absolutely. Can I tell you, if that leader didn't do anything with that information, they haven't been empathetic. And so I said to the leader, what'd you do? How did you help? The leader said, it was amazing because I wouldn't have actually found out that it was domestic violence, and I sort of actually asked that person, my team member, because this particular team member didn't want to open up and talk about it. He just said he had some personal issues he had to deal with. So the leader said, look, I'm here to help. I'd love to know what they are. If you're willing to share, you don't have to. If you are, I'm here for you, and I'll try to help as best I can. It was a great conversation, so the leader tells me. So the team member poured his heart out and said, look, I'm really struggling. It turned into an emotional conversation. Now, what actually transpired was this. The team member didn't have anyone to talk to. There was a leadership conversation that happened. When the team member left, the leader said, how can I help? And the team member didn't even know that the leader was going to help. This is empathy 101, where the team member doesn't even know that the leader's going to help. So the leader went and found the domestic violence policy in the business, where everyone gets a certain amount of time off each year to deal with domestic violence issues, if they face them, which we hope we never ever do. I'm going to touch some wood. We hope we never deal with that, and we hope our loved ones never deal with that. So this particular leader went and found some leave for this worker, and some leave. Now, imagine the team member's response when the leader went back to him and said, hey, and I think this was a phone call, hey, by the way, don't rush back to work because there's a leave bank for you. The leader tells me that the team member nearly got emotional again. He said, thank you so much. He said that one thing, not having to worry about being at work and knowing that you've done that I got some time off, that will, and he probably said that it won't come out of my annual leave or my sick leave. He said that the team member couldn't thank him enough. Just from his heart said, look, I really, 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 really appreciate that. And that's empathy. I cannot give you probably a better case study about it, and maybe you've got a better one. I just love this one. And I hear stories all the time of great leaders. I just love this one because it's got everything in it. And it's got a leader who helped a team member before the team member even knew they needed helping, and even knew how they wanted to be helped. And they were helped, and the leader helped the team member. And it made such a big difference for the team member. Empathy is compassion. Compassion is action. It's not thinking and feeling. That's step 1 and 2. As per Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book on emotional intelligence, his 3-step empathy process. Think about it because you're not in their space. It's not sympathy, so you don't go to an emotion automatically. You have to comprehend, process. What are they going through? Then feel their pain. How are you feeling? Talk me through it. What's going on? Tell me more. And then it's about taking action, being compassionate enough to take some action. Now, let's wrap this up because we only do 30-minute webinars these days because I know you're very busy. Thank you for the people that joined in. So guess what? Here's the thing. If you stick your email address below, I will get Alison, who's usually on here with me, our business manager, who's our amazing business manager, who's been with us nearly 10 years next year. She will email you, and I'm happy to spend 15 minutes with anyone on here and talk through this content. If you've got any challenges around empathy, if you've got any team members that are struggling, happy to help you out and happy to talk you through what empathy looks and feels like. Now, if you leave your email below, Ali will also send you a link to an ebook, which is on our website. Now, for anyone, if you're fast, if the first person to put their email address in right now, and you've got 1 minute and 27 seconds, because I'll be off in half an hour from when we started, we're going to give you a free resilience report. So we do free reporting. Adam, good job, bro. Love your work. Adam Cauldron, I'm going to it's CQU in Gladdo or Rocky, Adam? I hope you're in Gladstone, mate. If you're in Gladdo, we've got some of your CQU people down here. Gladstone, go, bro. Linda's down here from your STEM group. Now, team, thank you. Always good to see people locally. Chris. How are you, bro? Contact me offline, man, and we'll see what we can see if we can't help you. Resilience, too slow, bro. Oh, Adam, good work. Righto, team. I said we're going to be off by 11:30. So, Adam, you are lucky enough to get our free resilience report. And anyone else that even watches this webinar, please reach out. Anton@theguineagroup.com.au or Alison with 2 L's at theguineagroup.com.au. Alison's probably a better person to email. She'll get that quicker than I will. Team, been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for jumping on for those people that did. and we'll see you in a month's time. Next month, we're doing safety culture surveying is our topic, safety culture surveying. Thanks, troops, and we'll see you next month.